Hi everybody, Terry Ryder from Hotspot. Today we published our new edition of Top 5 Perth Hotspots, and so it's timely to talk about the research that led us to make the choices of the locations that we included in that report, and the results of our general suburb by suburb analysis of the Perth metropolitan area, which we've just completed. What we've found, in fact, is that the Perth market is the strongest that it's been any time in the last 5 years. About 5 years ago, the Perth market, which had previously been national market leader, while the resources investment boom was raging, the Perth property market was rising strongly. Prices were rising more strongly there than anywhere else in Australia in 2012 and into 2013. And then when the resources investment boom came to an end, we saw a downturn in the Western Australian state economy, and that translated into a downturn in the Perth property market, which has been chugging along in gradual decline for the past 5 years. And very much it's the case that the Perth market has been very counter-cyclical to what's been going on in Sydney and Melbourne. While those markets were booming, Perth was in decline, as was Darwin, another capital city which is very much hooked into the resources sector. And now as Sydney and Melbourne are very much into their downturn phases, Perth is actually again doing the opposite. It's actually moving into recovery. And the results of our latest research confirm that recovery is underway. Some of the factors that lead us to believe that Perth is on the way back. Firstly, vacancies, which previously been pretty high, 4 or 5% for a couple of years, but now down below 3%. So that's the first factor. And as a result of that, rents are rising again. We've got evidence from at least 3 different reputable research sources showing that median rents, both for houses and for apartments in Perth, are now on the rise. Our suburb by suburb research of the Perth metropolitan area confirms that sales activity is up. The number of suburbs is rising by demand is increasing in Perth. And in the course of doing that suburb by suburb research, we've found by looking at what's happening with prices in terms of annual movements with median prices suburb by suburb, that 40% of the suburbs of the Perth metropolitan area now have median prices higher than they were 12 months ago. 60% still have prices lower, so there's still a way to go in terms of the recovery, but the fact that 40% of suburbs now have rising prices is further indication that there is a gradual recovery underway in the Perth market. Now, our latest survey, we conduct these quarterly surveys for a product we call the Price Predictor Index, and we've just completed the Perth and WA sections of that. And that's fed into our Top 5 Perth Hotspots report, which we published today. We've given a positive rating to a record number of suburbs in Perth. A positive rating is a suburb that's either considered to have a rising market, a plateau market, or a consistency market, as opposed to a decline market or a danger market. Now, 2.5 years ago, when we did this quarterly research, there were only 17 suburbs in Perth, and it was very much at the pits of the downturn. 2.5 years ago, only 17 suburbs had a positive rating, but every quarter since then, quarter by quarter, we've seen a steady rise in the number of suburbs with a positive rating. We now have 168 suburbs with a positive rating as we rank them for the Price Predictor Index. Now, as part of that, we look at the suburbs where there is clear evidence of rising demand as depicted by the number of sales quarter by quarter, number of house and apartment sales. In early 2017, there were 0 suburbs in Perth where there was evidence of rising buy demand. Again, back then, a couple of years ago, Perth is very much at the bottom of the cycle, at the pits of the downturn. But again, quarter by quarter, there's been a gradual pickup, 0 to 4 to 12 to 31 to 42, etc. Until now, in this latest survey, we've found 53 suburbs with clear evidence that demand is rising, that sales activity is rising. And that's starting to translate into price growth. So we analysed 216 suburbs in the Perth metropolitan area to see what was happening with prices, and we found 85 of those suburbs have median prices higher than a year ago, and 131 suburbs still have medians lower, slightly lower than it. Most of them are down only a few percent, but nevertheless they're down. But that means that 40% of suburbs have rising prices in the Perth metropolitan area now, and 60% still have prices down. We found in analysing the price data that many of those locations with good price growth in the last 12 months are upmarket areas. We've commented on that before. We felt that it's further evidence that there is a recovery underway in Perth, that some of the $1 million suburbs, which often are the ones that lead an upcycle in a city property market, many of those suburbs have good price growth, like Claremont. These are all suburbs with median prices above $1 million. Claremont is up 18%. Mossman Park is very upmarket suburbs, up 8%. Subiaco is up 7%. West Lindenville's up 10%. East Fremantle is up 7%, etc. Others that are up quite strongly include Ardross, Floreat, and South Perth. But the standout market amongst all of them is the suburb of Mount Pleasant, where the median price has risen 26% in the last 12 months to reach 1.27 million. Some of the suburbs with lesser prices are also getting good uplift. Brabham, where the median price is below 400,000, that's up 21%. Kensington, median price in the high 800,000s, it's up 19%. And West Perth is up 16% to 750,000. Now, those are some of the markets that are going well in Perth. There's still many suburbs where prices are still lower than they were 12 months ago, including some that have recorded double-digit declines in their median prices. And just illustrates the point that markets aren't smooth. Media will always publish a single figure to telling what's going on in the Perth property market. Most sources say the median price for Perth overall is down 2 or 3% in annual terms, although CoreLogic says it's more like 7.5%. They always have the most negative figures. But those generalised pieces of data really don't tell you anything useful. Behind that generalised figure, we've got all these different situations playing out. Some markets rising strongly, some rising moderately, some down a little bit, and some down a lot. So there are suburbs that are still down in double digits in terms of percentage decline in the median prices. And a standout struggle market is the Kwinana local government area in the south of the Perth metropolitan area. It's a number of the suburbs down there, like Bertram, Leda, Medina, Aurelia and Parmelia. They have sales activity is still down. There's not reflecting the general upward trend in sales activity in Perth, and their median prices have dropped quite a lot. Aurelia is down 17% in annual terms. Parmelia and Leda are down 10 or 11%. And so most of those suburbs now have median prices in the low to mid 200,000s, making it the cheapest precinct in the Perth market. But overall, data on prices across Perth is the most positive that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years. Leading the recovery, the Joondalup local government area continues to be a standout in the Perth market up in the northern suburbs. Quite affordable, many of the suburbs in that precinct, good infrastructure. 10 suburbs were found in our suburb by suburb analysis have rising sales activity, and we're starting to see small to moderate price growth in many of the suburbs in the Joondalup precinct. Suburbs like Connolly and Edgewater, Craigie, Ocean Reef, Padbury, Sorrento all have median prices higher than they were 12 months ago. A northern neighbour of Joondalup, Wanneroo, is another one of the growth markets. It's got a number of suburbs showing good sales patterns. Then in the one of the southern sort of middle market and inner city precincts, Melville, the local government area of Melville, is another of the Perth precincts leading the market fight back. 7 growth markets and others with consistent sales activity. That's where Mount Pleasant, I mentioned earlier, is one of the standout performers in Perth in terms of prices, up 26%. in the last 12 months, and that's on the back of a clear sales pattern of rising sales activity. That's what we look for with these surveys, rising sales activity quarter by quarter, which eventually leads to price growth. And we've seen that pattern over the last 18 months in Mount Pleasant. It's now translated in the last 12 months into a 26% increase in its median price. So another of the features to emerge in this research is that, notwithstanding what's happened in Kwinana, which is kind of against trend, I'm not sure why that market is struggling so much, but there are other areas of the Perth metropolitan area where the more affordable areas, like the local government areas of Armidale, Canning, Swan, where there's evidence of suburbs starting to move into growth phases. So all those local government areas, Armidale, Canning and Swan, have multiple suburbs, rising demand, and some steady performances in other affordable areas like Rockingham and Gosnells. But the one that stands out for us in this latest research is the local government area of Canning, which has good location features, good transport links, good infrastructure, a number of suburbs with median prices in the 400,000s or the high 300,000s. It's projected to be one of the population growth leaders as Perth grows over the next, say, 10 or 20 years. And a number of suburbs which are attracting increasing attention from buyers because they offer affordability, good infrastructure, good links, etc. Suburbs like Ferndale, where the median price is 440,000. It's close to the Albany Highway and the Leach Highway. The Canning River and the Canning River Regional Park sort of runs right through the edge of that suburb, and so it's got lots of green space, and it's right next to the Westfield Carousel Shopping Centre. So those kinds of locational features that make suburbs like Ferndale amongst the ones that are rising in demand, and typical of some of the locations that are to the forefront of the recovery in the Perth property market, as evidenced by low vacancies, rising rents, rising sales activity, and 40% of the suburbs of the Perth metropolitan area now having median prices higher than they were 12 months ago. And that's all encapsulated in the new edition of Top 5 Perth Hotspots, which we published today. Okay, so that's Hotspot of the Week for this week. Let's do it again same time next week. Terry Ryder signing off. Bye for now.